Okay, so we talked about democratic values. We talked about the balance between privacy and public health. As you've articulated there, I'd like to speak now about the dictatorship to the north. First of all, in the past weeks, a lot of speculation about leader Kim Jong-un's health lesson. Your intelligence has said there were no signs that he had a surgery. How sick was he or is he? Well, our intelligence is the lowest, and we share and analyze a great deal together with our ally, the United States. And all indication we have is that there is no unusual activity, whether it's his health or the society as a whole. Obviously, there is a limitation because it's a closed society and information is very difficult to garner. But to the extent we know, we don't detect any unusual development. It's a closed society that your administration has been making major effort to crack open. Since President Moon took office in 2017, your government has stressed improving ties with the North in the hopes of promoting peace on the peninsula. But you've been criticized over not putting human rights high enough up on the agenda. For example, you dropped the traditional co-sponsoring of a resolution condemning North Korea's horrific rights records at the UN General Assembly this past fall. President Moon also did not bring up human rights in a meeting with Kim Jong-un last year. Have you sacrificed the calls to improve human rights in order to keep the dialogues going? I think keeping the dialogue going is extremely important if we are going to find a peaceful resolution for the North Korean nuclear and missile issue and getting us on track towards creating lasting peace on the Korean Peninsula. Human rights is a very big issue when it comes to North Korea, and we support the international efforts, the UN efforts in this regard. Obviously, to keep the engagement going, we have to balance everything, and it's a decision given all the constellation. The judgment that we make, we don't consider human rights issue of North Korea as last, but the tactics and the strategy in promoting the engagement with North Korea have to weigh all factors and proceed. But there is a critical mass of criticism. I'd just like to highlight a couple of them because the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in North Korea said the following. Integrating fundamental human rights into the current negotiations is crucial for the sustainability of any agreement for denuclearization and peace on the Korean Peninsula and beyond. Can you really wait to talk tough on human rights with North Korea? I mean, doesn't that undermine the legitimacy of your effort? I don't think so. I think human rights has a place, and I think human rights mechanisms of the United Nations plays a very important role in keeping the engagement on that track. But there is another track to engagement with North Korea, which is the peace and security track. And at some point, they have to come together. But at this time, our judgment is that the security track has to take precedence. You've also been heavily criticized as you are prioritizing the security track of turning a blind eye in another way. Back in November, your country deported two fishermen accused of murder back to North Korea. The UN again expressing deep concern that the decision was made potentially without due process and that the two men are at the risk of serious human rights violations upon return. And they just highlighted a couple including enforced disappearance, arbitrary execution, torture, ill treatment, trials that do not conform to international fair trial standards. They say that your government could have failed to uphold international human rights obligation itself. Do you regret the deportation decision? No, not at all. I think we made the best decision under the circumstances, and given that there was no genuineness to the two men's desire to come to this part of the peninsula, and given that they themselves have, how do you determine that? Well, we have a process run by our National Security Office and all the ministries are involved. And the collective decision was that they posed a danger to our society, and therefore the decision was made. Doesn't it really come down to the fact that you are afraid that any position that you take on human rights will simply blow up talks with the North? We are not afraid. We are very actively seeking the engagement, taking all the elements into consideration. But I think even the human rights mechanisms would say that it is very important to keep that engagement going. Okay, I'd also like to talk about the circumstances currently in the North. We highlighted a number of the dire circumstances when it comes to the case of those two fishermen. We also have signs of deterioration there. The country has had a poor harvest season. Now, with the coronavirus, there were destabilizing factors both economically, potentially on the health front as well. How concerned are you that the North, with its strongman policy, will lash out and deflect from the interior issues that it has in the country? Well, we watched very carefully. I think the official position is that there is no case of coronavirus, but they report to the WHO of quarantined people and testing. So we take their official position with a lot of grain of salt. The health structure there is extremely weak. We have offered to collaborate on this front. We have not received a response yet, but I would be cautious as to make a sweeping judgment about the situation there overall is. But are you preparing for the potential of increased provocations? They have provoked. There has been a series of short-range launches. These are certainly unhelpful, and we have urged them to stop this at a time when the whole world is trying to come to grips with this very unprecedented health crisis. But we watch very closely and we are prepared. And I think based on our very robust defense posture and readiness based on our strong US-ROK security alliance. Let's talk a little more about that alliance and your readiness to face any potential threat from the North. You've mentioned that they've already provoked. You have actually been trimming back on some joint military exercises on an effort to engage the Kim regime in dialogue. The Carnegie Endowment for International Peace has said the following about the paring back. Canceling crucial exercises detract from Seoul's very ability to manage the threatening neighbor it has been engaging with by downgrade South Korea's military readiness and compromising its ability to conduct operations with the U.S. forces. Aren't you concerned that you might not be ready if Kim lashes out? I have full confidence in our military authorities and collaboration with the U.S. military authorities to keep up with that robust preparedness despite the reconstruction of the exercises. That is done to support the diplomatic track certainly, but all the while making sure that the preparedness is not in any way undermined. But it doesn't help certainly that your relations with the United States are not as good as they once were. You are currently at odds over the defense cost sharing. The U.S. has rejected your offer of a 13% increase in spending, and instead is demanding a fivefold increase. How do you want to come to an agreement, and what if you don't? Difficult, I admit, but this is an alliance that's developed over 67 years. There have been difficult issues in the past that we've been able to walk through. You know, allies have differences, and I think the special measures agreement this time is particularly difficult. But we are both determined to find an agreement that we both can agree to. Obviously, it will take more time and more effort, but we are, they are confident that we will reach an agreement eventually. Donald Trump has said the following: it's a question of whether South Korea will contribute toward the defense of their own nation. We are defending nations that are very wealthy. South Korea is a very wealthy nation. Does he have a point? We are increasingly wealthy, which is why our share of the stationing of the troops has increased over the years. The initial agreement is that we will provide the land and the facilities, and the U.S. will provide for the expenses of the troop stationing. Now, as Korea developed and became more wealthy, we have agreed to Special Measures Agreement, which is the title of this agreement, and increasing more of that share, and with that share increase has to be incremental. It can't be 30%, 50% over a 1 year period. There is a methodology system. There is a budgetary system that our government has to follow, and in the end, this has to go through the National Assembly for approval. So there are all these parameters that we as government need to meet while negotiating with the United States. And I think our partners across the table from the United States are fully aware of this. And as you are sorting through those parameters, we have the US President not missing on one opportunity to say what a great relationship he had with the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and what a nice guy he is. Trump has said the following: "We fell in love, no really. He wrote me beautiful letters." Are you concerned that Trump is speaking in such high terms about the dictator to the north and not about the democratically elected president of South Korea? I mean, you are long-time allies. Well, how do you keep saying concerned? We are not concerned. I think the relations between our two governments at all levels, between the presidents, between myself and the Secretary of State, is very strong, very tight. And I think, in particular, during this time of the COVID 19 crisis, the collaboration has been exemplary. So I'm not concerned. I think that's President Trump's unique way of messaging, and it also indicates his clear desire to continue to engage at that level. The engagement with North Korea this time around has been driven very much by the top level political will, both on the side of the United States and also to a certain extent on the part of our side as well. And it's very important to keep that high level political will going for the continued engagement. What other options do you have if that alliance breaks down? Have you become too reliant on the US nuclear shield that they provide? I'm not at all concerned. I don't think that's the scenario that we anticipate. I think the alliance is very strong. The US is fully committed to the security of South Korea and the extension of their nuclear shield. So I don't know where you get the possibility of that happening. I don't see that possibility. Let's talk about China because in the meantime, China has been using the coronavirus crisis as an opportunity to assert itself in the region. There has been the arrest rather, of democracy activities in Hong Kong, military pressure being put on Taiwan and its neighbors in the South China Sea, even going so far as to sink a Vietnamese fishing vessel. It looks like China is using the coronavirus pandemic as a regional power grab while other major powers are busy at home. Surely that must raise some red flags for you. Well, China and we had our difficult time in 2016 2017. Post my president's visit in December 2017, I think we are largely recovering the close economic and people to people ties. As far as the COVID 19 is concerned, it first happened in China, and we were one of the first to be hit because we had lots of people traveling back and forth to China. I think the collaboration on COVID 19 has been very good. We press for quick and prompt sharing of information. We underscore the importance of that, and we demonstrate that with our own actions, and we urge that on the part of China as well. We have economies under pressure right now amid this pandemic, citizens' health at stake. What do you think your part of the world will look like after this pandemic ends? I think post coronavirus, the world will certainly be different from pre COVID 19. I think all economies have been severely hit by this. We are rolling out domestic economic stimulus packages for our strategic industries, for our small and medium businesses, for furloughed workers, for households. But that can only go to a certain extent. We are very dependent on our trade, our investment ties with overseas. So we very much hope that that also recovers. And we can't do that by ourselves. So I do hope that our partners will also see the self-interest in recovering the global values chains, the trade and investment, the business trips. And I think there are two trends. Yes, there are tendencies of countries to become insular and shutting up the doors and parochial. But I think there is also understanding that, and the virus has made this so clear, that those changes are cross-border. It doesn't stop at the border. And you may close the border, but the virus still gets in. So there is an increasing call for global coordination at virus fora, at the UN, at the WHO, at the G20. And we do hope that beyond the talk, there will be greater multilateral collaboration in overcoming not just the health crisis but also the socio-economic crisis as well. South Korean Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hwa, thank you for joining us on Conflict Zone. Thank you.